Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the DK Garage. I'm Jeremy, and that's Joe, and this is the Race Day Rundown.
Yeah, we're at Atlanta Motor Speedway for the second time this year, running the 550 horsepower package on this 1.5 mile oval. It's going to be fun to see how things shape up. We talked a lot about what's going to be involved, the different drivers, and a lot of stats in our full podcast. That link is up above, so go check it out if you have time. Really went into a lot of detail. I think it was a really good show.
Yeah, we really hit a lot of drivers, made good cases, I think, on both sides, for and against. So for the nitty-gritty, that's the episode that you want to watch. This is going to be an abbreviated version. We put all of that information. We try to put it in what we call a DK impact score. It's a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being the best, 1 being, don't play them. I think we have a good, I think everyone's got a good number this week. But yeah, if you want to know the stats, check out that episode. If you're here for a quick lineup build, this is the one you want.
Absolutely. So let's dive into it with a quick race preview. We've got 400-mile event rather than the 500-mile event earlier in the year, 260 laps, which is less than Kyle Larson led the last time we were here. Mile and a half, we already mentioned that, but there's 182 potential performance points, so that is something to consider. It affects that strategy. The stages are 80, 80, and 100, and last time we were here, Ryan Blaney snuck out a win and took it from Kyle Larson.
I would imagine we'll probably see a competition caution around, lap 25, 30, somewhere around in there. That could make things interesting. This is a high tire wear track. So whenever that caution comes, for sure everyone's coming down. They're getting 4 tires. No one's going to risk 2 tires. That's going to potentially shake things up at the very front. So I think we got some interesting numbers, but we got some good numbers. Let's get into it.
Talking numbers, salary, we'll start at the top. Kyle Larson, he's got the highest salary, $12,000, starting 6th. I've given an impact score of 9. I'm not as a 10 because $12,000 is quite a bit, especially compared to the other drivers on the slate. He's definitely somebody I want a good bit of exposure to, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm really I see Kyle Larson dominating this race. It seems like the most obvious thing. That's probably what you should play. I'm at a 9. I know you're at a 9. He's very highly rated. It all makes sense. But my eyes tell me he's lost a little bit of that advantage that we've seen previous. That's why I couldn't give him a full-fledged 10. There's some other guys that I think might be those guys to dominate. We'll get to them. But I think Larson is certainly a great play, even at that $12,000 price tag.
Kevin Harvick's next on the salary board, $10,900, starting 21st. Great history here. He has the most career wins of the active drivers, tied with someone I'll mention a little bit later. But he is somebody I'm giving a driver score of 9. I think they've got the right pack. This 550 package fits what they're doing a little bit more so. Then they've got a little bit more recent consistency, and his track performance here speaks for itself. I think he's a good driver to look to in tournament environments.
I really want to give Harvick a 10 in this position. I mean, he has been the best driver at Atlanta. We covered that. And he's even been strong in these types of tracks this year, but he's not quite been the Harvick that we're used to seeing. He did not look good last week at the road course. Obviously, different track, even different engine package. I really want to give Harvick a 10, but I had to settle with the 9 just because there's a little hesitancy there with will they be able to work their way through the field and really pay off that salary when you got other guys right below him that are in prime spots, in my opinion.
Ryan Blaney, 10-5, 15th is his starting position. He's somebody that has a recent win here and has some decent numbers at 550, but Penske as a whole hasn't really focused on 550 horsepower tracks. Known fact. What do you think? We like him because I think that track history and this kind of is the right mix with the starting position. It's somebody I want to look at and have some solid exposure with. I'm at a 9.
I want to be at a 9, but I had to give him an 8 only because when you look at his Atlanta history kind of overall, it's not terrible, but it's not the best. It's not what I would like out of giving someone a 10. But you mentioned he won the most recent race here. He was the only guy late in the race who even could challenge Kyle Larson. And, I mean, you mentioned it. He led, 269. He was dominant. But Blaney, he got the job done late. He could do it again. He's got massive PD upside. Like him a lot, but I'm a little hesitant on the track history.
Kyle Busch, 10-3, starting second. He could be an alternate to Dominator whenever you're looking at somebody to compete with Kyle Larson. He has been very strong recently. He is on a heater. We talked about that extensively in the podcast. We knew it was coming at some point. But starting second, it's going to be hard for him to find a great path value unless he does dominate. I've given him an 8 because I think he's right there on that borderline. I do want some exposure in tournament environments, though.
Look, this slate is really challenging. We talked about this on the podcast. I think you're really going to need to really strategically build your lineups because there's a lot of interesting plays. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to have some rowdy energy when you build Kyle Busch in your lineups this week. He is no, I'm just kidding. But I do like this stuff. It is pretty good. I think Kyle Busch is a fine play. The thing that worries me the most about him this week, he doesn't have the laps led that we'd like to see out of the 1.5 miles. He has to lead laps. That's something we're lacking. But, man, he's got track position. He's been the second best driver, but also the second best Kyle so far this year.
Yeah, good points there. And while you chug that rowdy energy drink, I'm going to get on to one of my favorite plays and is one of our green flag drivers in our race guide, which you can check out below in the description. It's a great visual aid to kind of go with what we're talking about to give you some more statistics to look at and give you some core lineup builds and some other things. So go check that out in the link below. But William Byron starting 19th. His salary is at $10,000. I have given him a 9. I want a lot of exposure to him because I think we talked about it a lot. His ability in this package on this style of track, he's been very consistent throughout the year.
The only driver that I'm closer to giving or was closer to giving a 10 on this slate than Kyle Larson is William Byron. I don't know if he has that win upside. I mean, certainly he does. He does have that win already this year on a 1.5 miles. But I think it's the top 5, potentially top 3 upside that I see from that team. They were looking strong last week, just late in the race, had some things not go their way. Much poorer of a finish than what their car was really worth. I like William Byron a lot. I gave him a 9 as well, real close to a 10. I think he's going to be very popular and rightfully so.
Chase Elliott, his teammate, last week's winner at Road America, is starting on the pole at $9,800. He's in an interesting position being on the pole and having a lot of fast cars around him. He's in a position I think I kind of want to stay out of the mix on. I've given him a 7. I think there's a lot of other value to be had, but I do want a little bit of exposure to him.
Yeah, I think this all comes down to what's your strategy on this slate? Are you going to build a lot of lineups? Are you only going to build 1, 3, 5? All that really matters when it comes to Chase Elliott because I would say if you want a lot of exposure on this slate, you want to have some Chase Elliott lineups, and you want to build it strategically around him being at least one of the dominators. 9,800 is not too bad for his talent. And with what that team has been doing almost all year. But the biggest hesitancy with me with Chase Elliott, and which is why I'm at a 6 on him, is at Atlanta, his home track. Not the best history. Even if you kind of chalk out the blown engine from earlier this year, not been his strongest track. I kind of see him moving back, maybe getting just outside of top 5. Good day for that team, not a good day for your lineups.
Denny Hamlin, 9,600, starting 3rd, to me is almost the same identical play as Chase Elliott. I've given him an impact score of 7 like I did Chase. I think pretty much what you just said, I ditto that in my opinion of Denny Hamlin. That's where I'm landing at. Where are you at?
Well, I gave him a 7, so I'm a little higher on Hamlin than I am on Elliott. He started out front. He led laps early. I think he led like 27 in the first race this year. Been pretty strong on both 550 and 750 tracks. Kind of trailed off there for a little bit, but Pocono and even at the road course last week looks to be a lot stronger. I think Hamlin might be a nice, probably lower ownership play this week. So I'm right there at a 7 with you. I like him a little bit more than Chase.
Alex Bowman, 9,400, starting 17th. He's a driver in a great spot with place differential and then solid history on this style of tracks this year specifically. And he's somebody that has multiple top 5 finishes in mile-and-a-half ovals. I think he's somebody that we need to take a look at. I've given him an impact score of 9.
I wasn't high on Bowman in this first race, and I don't remember what his salary was, but he was starting 3 spots further up, and he ended up finishing 3rd. Was really strong, was surprising, but now you get him at 9,400 starting 17th, and he's been really strong since then. I like Bowman a lot this week. I had to give him a 9.
Brad Kay, 9,200 starting 14th. He's in a similar starting position as Alex Bowman, but I haven't seen the consistency as I have with Bowman, especially recently. I've given him an impact score of 7. I think there is value to be had there. He does have decent stats on in the 550 horsepower package and on the mile-and-a-half ovals. There is some value to be had there if things go right, for sure.
So if I'm going off of just real recent race history, I would not be on Brad right now at all. They don't seem to have any momentum. They're not having good, strong runs. Penske as a whole, it just seems to be off the last few weeks. But excuse me. But Brad, in the last 5 races, has 2 wins here. So if there's a racetrack that he can really get it back, this would be that one. I'm at a 7, right there with you. I'd like to be higher based on those numbers, but again, that recent history, just this year, got me a little worried.
Martin Truex Jr., $9,000 starting 5th. We talked about him probably more than any other driver in the podcast, it seemed like, where we think he's headed and where he's at currently in the season. And he's in an interesting position starting 5th. I just don't see a ton of value and upside. This has been somewhere he's had a little bit of success, but where he's at and where they're at in the season and it not being a playoff track, I don't want to have very much exposure. I'm at a 7.
Well, we talked about him quite a bit because we don't really see him in the same light. You know, a lot of times when we're doing these impact scores, we've already seen it a lot. If we differ, it's by a point. It's not usually by a wide margin. And we're actually, this week, we're both at a 7. But we talked about him just because I view him where they're at in this season in a little different light than you. So, guys, check that out so you can get our full opinion. I think this is kind of a crucial race for Truex. He has the history here to be worth it, but I am a little hesitant, so that's why I'm at a 7. But the guy I think we are really hesitant on is Joey Logano. Look, we get him at under 9,000. He's 8,800. He starts 10th. There's PD upside, but he earned our yellow flag this week. That means he can still do well, but you should be really cautious and strategic when and where you put him in your lineups, because I had to give him a 5 based on the data that we looked at.
Yeah, I gave him a 6. We look at the data, and it's hard for him to even finish in the top 15 whenever you're looking at the equipment we're in this weekend. So that's why we're being cautious on him. Chris Buescher was somebody we talked about in this podcast. I was excited to roster until I saw his price tag, $8,600, starting 18th. He's got a lot of good things going for him with the data, but that price tag really tamps down my, ability to want to roster him.
I don't think I can really end up at any Chris Buescher, especially if I decide to go light on my lineups. I'm at a 6 on Chris Buescher. I'm a little higher on Kurt Busch, who's next on the list. He's 8,400. He starts 8th. We were high on him in the first race. He has some good history here. I believe he has 3 wins, tied with Harvick here. I'm at a 7. If you look at the last race, he wrecked out, but that's because Hamlin spun him out basically on a restart. So You kind of have to throw that away. I think Kurt Busch is in a fine, maybe low ownership, sneaky play position this week.
Yeah, I've given him a 7-2. I think he's somebody that you can take a look at, and the ownership will most likely be low on him. Great tournament play. Christopher Bell, 8,200, starting fourth. Very, very difficult position for him to be in, starting that high up with a lot of other drivers and cars that are better in this package.
Yeah, I gave him a 4. He's starting fourth. There's really no data to back playing him. Obviously, anything can happen as NASCAR. He could end up optimal. I just don't see it. I'm going off of what I can see. That's where I'm going to land on Bell this week. Amarola seems to have been doing a little better there for a little bit. He comes in at 8,000 this week, starting 20th. There's PD upside, decent track history. I'm at a 6, but you only gave him a 5 this week.
Yeah, I've given him a 5 because I really haven't seen very good data at 1.5 miles this year, which is kind of surprising with him overall in his history. So I'm not really enjoying anything in the 550 package data-wise with him, so I'm moving on.
Austin Dillon comes in next, 7,900. He starts 13th. Another driver we differ slightly on. We're both still positive on him. I gave him a 7, but you gave him an 8, which I think was a little, not high, but a little surprising because he's starting 13th. I don't see massive PD upside with Austin Dillon.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that there has to be a lot of place differential upside with that price tag. It's a nice mix. If he can get a top 10, he has in the 5.5 mile ovals, he has 3 top 10s in that 2021 data so far that we put together. And if you want to check that out, go over to our Patreon. We've got the garage thoughts with a lot of data compiled there. But he stood out to me as somebody that potentially could reach value in that position fairly easily.
Another driver that we differed just slightly on, but both still very positive. Another driver I'm surprised that you rated him this high. Daniel Suarez, 7,700. He starts 27th. I imagine he will be a fairly popular option. For sure has top 20 upside. I'm at an 8, and you came in with a whopping 9. Explain yourself.
So I think he's going to be where a lot of people land in this price range, where I think Austin Dillon would be a great pivot. But Suarez has got great stats so far this year in the 550 horsepower package, and specifically on the 1.5 miles. If he can maintain a 16th place finish, that with his place differential, that's his average. That's strong, and that's over 5x.
Matty D comes in next. He starts 12th. He's 7,500. We're both big fans of his. We want him to do well. Had a great battle with Austin Cindric up at the front. He led, I think, 10 laps at Road America. Very surprising. They've been way off on their road course package. Penske as a whole was off. Somehow Wood Brothers figured it out. Great run for them. Decent on 550. Not a terrible track for him. We're both at a 7 on Matty D. I think he's a nice little pivot to some of these other more popular drivers, including the next guy that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, I think he'll be under-owned because he doesn't have a lot of place differential upside, and he has to finish in the top 10 to really reach value. So it's going to be difficult. I'm at a 7 because it's going to be difficult, but in a GPP environment, I don't mind having a little bit of him sprinkled in to be different.
So this was, I think, the shocker of the slate. I know we talked about playing this guy before salaries came out. You were really wanting to play him. He starts 34th, good PD upside. He has top 20 upside, at least on 1.5 miles. But Ryan Preece comes in at a whopping $7,400. To me, they outpriced his, not his potential, but where he's likely to finish. I had to give him a 6. I have to respect the PD upside, but I don't like this play at this price tag.
I'm exactly in that boat. We talked about it going into it, so I'm at a 6 as well. Basically, ditto what you just said. It just doesn't make sense at this price tag. I would rather have his teammate a little bit further down the list.
So I feel like we can kind of talk about the next two drivers together. That would be Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick. Chastain comes in at 7,200. Reddick is 7,100. Chastain starts 9th. Reddick starts 7th. Both have had some pretty good runs recently. I feel like they're in a little bit of a tougher spot. I'm at a 6 on Chastain and a 5 on Tyler Reddick. Where are you landing and seeing these guys at?
I'm at a 5 on Chastain and a 5 on Reddick. I think pretty much they're the same play in my opinion. There's not a lot of upside. There's not really much that they offer. I would maybe play Reddick a little bit more than Chastain if you even looked at it, just because he's got a little bit better data in 550.
And I'd be just a little higher on Chastain. But again, I think what you said is spot on. Eric Jones, I think this is a tough spot for him, even though we are kind of a little desperate for some solid, cheap drivers this week. Starting 22nd at 6,900. I'm at a 5. You only gave him a 4. Obviously, you're not seeing much upside with Jones either.
Absolutely. I think him and Custer are very similar situations. Starting 23rd, Custer 6,700. Haven't seen the consistency. Even if they both manage to get top 20s, they're still not able to reach even 4X. So, in my opinion, they're not really worth taking a look at.
So, I didn't see this until literally just now. In the podcast, you were talking them up. You were already talking them up just a few minutes ago. Ricky Stenhouse, 6,600. 16th. I think he's a fine play. I just look at the scores. I gave him a 7, and you're only at a 6. That doesn't. Your enthusiasm seems higher than your score.
No, I think if I were to play anybody, I would have liked to see Ryan Preece priced in that price range, and that would have been a fine play for me to go. But in that price range, I'm looking at Ricky Stenhouse starting 14th. Or 16th, he has top 14 upside. You could get potentially a 5X with that. I think it's a okay play. I'm enthusiastic about other plays further down for better value paths.
So just kind of skimming through Chase Briscoe. He's next, 6,400, 11th. I'm at a 5. Probably a little high on my score, but I think he'll probably be very low owned. And he's been running a little bit better. Maybe he's a little sneaky GPP play. Not in love with it. You're only at a 4, but I think a solid driver this week. And look, we try to call it how we see it. When drivers are in good spots, we praise them. When they're in tough spots, we let you know. I think Bubba's in kind of a decent spot. I gave him a 6. You're a little higher at a 7. Starting 24th at 6,300. I think he's playable this week.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the chalk of the slate will be Ryan Newman, and everybody will gather around him, who's next on the list. But Bubba Wallace is going to have top 18 upside in this package, in my opinion. And if he's doing that and if he picks up a couple fastest laps, he's over 5X easily. And he might go a little under-owned. I don't know what other content providers or how they view him at all, but I'm at a 7. I think he's got more than enough upside this week.
Yeah, you said it. He's got some good upside. Hopefully, if we do play him or when we play him, other people are off of them. Other content providers are skipping them. I doubt they will, but they may. But for sure, they're telling you about Ryan Newman. He starts 29th. He's $6,100. He's got good history here, good on mile and a halves. He doesn't have to do much, and he's easily over 5X. I think he's highly owned. I think he's a nice guy to pivot off of just to get different. But you have to respect it. I'm at an 8.
I'm at an 8. I think he's got everything that you were looking for in a value play, and that price tag, don't know what DraftKings was doing, but they priced down a value play there that I think a lot of people are going to find really handy this week. Somebody I think we differ on, and I think is another fantastic pivot off of Ryan Newman, is Michael McDowell, 5,900, starting 25th. He's got some fantastic 550 data, and he's even got some pretty solid mile and a half oval data that we talked about. I think this is a really good opportunity. Last year's first or second rated DraftKings value driver overall the entire season, Michael McDowell finds himself in a value situation this weekend as well.
Yeah, I probably underscored him a little bit. I'll stick by it. I gave him a 6. I see that you're at an 8. That's, I think, the biggest difference of this late. But really, I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, I pointed out in the podcast he was the best value driver overall last year, and that beats out Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick, and they were monsters. So I think that's a solid play. I think the main reason why I gave him maybe a little lower than I should is I'll probably dip down to Corey LaJoie because I'll save 200, and I have a one position higher He starts 26th versus 25th. I'm at a 6 as well, but again, I think you're going to be playing a lot of these expensive guys. I don't know yet, but that $200 could be a big difference. So that's why I'm probably underscored McDowell a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not as high on him as Corey LaJoie. I'm at a 6. I think if I'm going to go down to save some money, I'm looking at Anthony Alfredo, 5,500, 32 or 32nd starting position. I'm at a 7. I think he's got a little bit more upside with the value or path to value. That's where I'm at, but that's the lowest I would be willing to go this weekend.
I'm right there with you. I'm at a 6, and I don't even like that play either. He's just been really inconsistent. But if you need to save another $200 off of LaJoie, I think Alfredo is the last play that you want to play. Anybody else, I mean, no one's higher than a 3 for either of us on the rest of the slate. If you play anyone down there, it's just because you're maxing out those expensive guys. I can't recommend it this week.
Yep, and if you want to check out our full DK impact scores, go check out our race guide in the description below. It's got all of the scores that we've put together and a lot of other information like we talked about. If you are interested in getting in our free DraftKings contest, we have that going on every week, and it's been a lot of fun to get a lot of new members joining in on that. Drop your DK tag below in the comments, and I will add you, and then you will be on the list for the weekly invite. So make sure you do that. We definitely appreciate everyone that's been watching. All of our Patreon subscribers, thank you very much. You helped make this possible with all the gear and everything that it's required to make this thing happen. And we definitely appreciate all the subscriptions. Whenever you hit that red button for the subscribe, it helps us, and we definitely appreciate your time watching. If you don't see something, definitely let us know in the comments. If you want to have some engagement, we're over on Twitter. We do a lot of active activities on race day over there, so go follow us there. All that stuff's in the description. Jeremy, you have anything to wrap up, or are you ready to go?
No, man, this is going to be an interesting slate. I'm excited to see where some of these ownerships land out. But no, I mean, this is. I think we summed it up perfectly. It's time to build lineups, man.
Well, without further ado, I'm Joe. That's Jeremy. This is the DK Garage, and we'll see you next time.